announcing the arrival of His Excellency Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., President of the Republic of the Philippines, together with First Lady Luis Araneta Marcos. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Secretary of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, Honorable Maria Antonia Yulo Loizaga.
His Excellency President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., First Lady Luis Araneta Marcos, His Excellency Kamal Kishore, esteemed Deputy Prime Ministers, Honorable Ministers, and distinguished guests. Good evening, and welcome to the 2024 Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction Ministerial Dinner. We are gathered tonight not only to enjoy each other's company, but also to foster collaboration, strengthen partnerships, and discuss our shared vision of a more resilient Asia-Pacific region. As you may know, the APMCDRR is the main platform in Asia and the Pacific to monitor, review, and enhance cooperation for the implementation of the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 2030 at the regional level. This year's APMCDRR is centered on the theme, Surge to 2030, enhancing ambition in Asia-Pacific to accelerate disaster risk reduction. The Philippines' hosting of this conference is a testament to the visionary leadership of President Marcos to expand and sustain efforts to integrate disaster risk reduction and climate change mitigation and adaptation to national and local plans, programs, strategies, and investments. Reducing disaster risk is a shared responsibility, and the President has led the country in ensuring that development measures are integrated, risk-informed, inclusive, equitable, and accessible. To formally begin today's program, may I invite on stage the Honorable Gilberto C. Teodoro, Jr., Secretary of the Department of National Defense, for his message.
Mr. President, Madam First Lady, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. We are delighted to co-host the 2024 Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction. In what may seem like a paradox, the Asia-Pacific is simultaneously the most disaster-prone region in the world and at the same time host to the fastest growing regional economy. This speaks of ingenuity and the resilience of our nations in the face of hazards, the pace and severity of which have increased due to the impacts of climate change. Through this conference, the Philippines seeks to provide a platform for the convergence of governments in the region, international organizations, including the United Nations, and the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, among other stakeholders. Of course, we include our valuable partners in civil society and in the private sector. Given the fact that disasters transcend political and administrative boundaries, we hope this conference enables us to share the lessons we have learned under the leadership of His Excellency President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. in reducing disaster risk, learning from the best practices of other countries, all of us, and strengthening bilateral and multilateral cooperation in addressing complex challenges facing the Asia-Pacific. We are sure that this conference will build resilience and sustainability in all of us who are here. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you, Secretary Teodoro. May I now request the Honorable Enrique A. Manalo, Secretary of the Department of Foreign Affairs, for his message.
President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., First Lady Marie-Louise Araneta Marcos, fellow members of the Cabinet, Excellencies, Special Representative of the UN Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction, Mr. Kamal Kishore, colleagues from the Diplomatic Corps and the public and private sectors, ladies and gentlemen. I am deeply honored to welcome all of you as we embark on a very important conversation that is fundamentally about making the future more secure, safe, and empowering for our peoples. The Sendai framework binds us in a vision of a future-proof, risk-resilient world. This conference aims to bring forward solutions and insights that make our region a global pathfinder, one that converts our vulnerabilities to strength through innovation and cooperation. Each nation represented here is all too aware that intensifying disaster risks, climate change, sea level rise, and biodiversity loss are not phenomena of temporary nature, but everyday realities that demand more multilateralism. This conference offers a space where we, both public and private leaders in Asia-Pacific, can contribute to a rethinking of global institutions that guarantee they are geared towards success in the midst of all these realities. The Philippines is ready to work with you, our partners and friends, to find multilateral solutions that work for our people and that leave no one behind. We are with you in the most pivotal moment for decision and action. And as I speak, the Philippines is preparing to host the board of the Loss and Damage Fund and shaping consensus on a new treaty for the protection of persons in the event of disasters. As a Pacific nation, we embrace the Asia-Pacific sense of inclusivity and community, rooted in age-old ties in the waters that connect us, in the lands that we till, and the air that we breathe. Our work for our community is at the spotlight this week. The sheer weight of the collective experience and wisdom that this conference assembles this week in Manila enables us to break through the limits of our national capacities and forge unity for the future of the Asia-Pacific and of the world. Thank you and mabuhay.
Thank you, Secretary Manalo. The Philippine government has partnered with the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction to co-host this year's APMCDRR. The APMCDRR 2024 will provide an important opportunity to share innovative solutions and demonstrate our shared commitment and unity of purpose to accelerate risk reduction actions and enable transformative societal change towards resilience. It is now my pleasure to introduce the Special Representative of the United Nations Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction and Head of UNDRR, His Excellency Kamal Kishore.
Your Excellency President Marcos Jr., First Lady, Secretary Manalo, Secretary Teodoro, Secretary Loizaga, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a great privilege for me to be here this evening, and I extend my deepest gratitude to Your Excellency President Marcos for graciously hosting this reception at the Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference for Disaster Risk Reduction. This reception becomes even more special given that yesterday we marked the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction, which is a day designated by the United Nations General Assembly to remind all of us, to remind humanity that natural hazards may be inevitable, but they turn into disasters is not inevitable. It is within our agency to make sure that they do not cause loss of lives, loss of livelihoods. And on this occasion, for this conference, there is truly no other place in the world where I would want to be than in the Philippines. This morning somebody asked me, how would you characterize Philippines' work in the area of disaster risk reduction? And only one word came to my mind, lighthouse. It's a lighthouse which will give inspiration to countries not just in Asia-Pacific, but beyond Asia-Pacific to across the world. And why do I call it as lighthouse? Everyone talks about its vulnerability. I want to talk about its agency. I want to talk about its innovation. I want to talk about its new imagination. Its new imagination is characterized by three things. Number one, the focus on communities, focus at the local level. Honorable President, Excellency, when you were meeting with us earlier, in your remarks, at least 7 times you said, for people, community. All the work the policy wonks do, the technical experts do, has to all come together at the level of communities. This recognition is nowhere more vibrant than in the Philippines. The second thing why Philippines is lighthouse. You work across sectors. It's an all-of-government approach. Secretaries from at least 3 departments are present here, and we have collaborated with half a dozen more. So it's not pigeonholed in just one area, but it's everybody's business. The third, civil society engagement. Earlier today, we had a program at one of the malls where we interacted with children. And the level of awareness and enthusiasm that they have, it's just infectious. When you meet those children, you feel so hopeful about the future of not just us, but generations to come. So let me now turn over to expressing gratitude also to our colleagues, particularly the leadership of Secretary Teodoro and Secretary Loizaga. They are the co-chairs of this ministerial conference, and their teams have been just wonderful to work with. We are very grateful for that. And of course, all of you from Asia-Pacific who've joined us at this conference, you are the key actors. We've got only 5 years remaining in the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. We have to increase financing. We have to increase inclusion. We have to make sure that our efforts get localized, just as they are getting localized in Philippines. We have only 5 years. Let's seize the moment. Let APMCDRR Manila be remembered as an inflection point where everything changed, and suddenly we began to work on issues related to implementation of Sendai Framework with another level of urgency. Thank you very much, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much, His Excellency Kamal Kishore. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Republic of the Philippines, His Excellency Ferdinand R. Marcos, Jr.
Thank you very much to our DNR, Department of Environment and Natural Resources Secretary Maritoni Yulo Loizaga, for your kind introduction. Foreign Affairs Secretary Ricky Manalo, our Secretary of National Defense, Secretary Gilbert Teodoro, the Assistant Secretary General and Special Representative of the Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction and Head of the UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, His Excellency Kamal Kishore. And may I congratulate you. Your message was very well received, and it was you have been able to encapsulate so much of our thinking. And as you say now, is how to bring it down to the local communities and to our people. His Excellency Yuduk Singabdu Sr., Palau Vice President and Minister of Justice. I hope I didn't murder your name too much. His Excellency Sanbuyan Amarskaikan, Deputy Minister of Mongolia. His Excellency Datu Seri Dr. Ahmad Zahid Hamidi, the Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia. Senators Lauren Legarda, Cynthia Villar, and fellow workers in government. Of course, you met earlier the First Lady Lisa Araneta. The ministers and delegates of the Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction, the honorable members of the Diplomatic Corps, our key development partners and stakeholders. We have members of the private sector and the civil society, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you as we gather here in Manila for the 2024 Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction. It is an honor for the Philippines to host this gathering of experts, scientists, policymakers, practitioners, bound together by a common purpose. For many years, the Philippines has stood on the front line of the climate crisis. Our geographical location exposes us to hazards such as typhoons, earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions. Each of these challenges has tested the resilience of every Filipino and the strength of our spirit as a nation, as of course it has done to your countries as well. Yes, yet it is through these very trials that we have become more resolute and resolved in advancing data-driven and sustainable solutions to protect the well-being of all our people. This conference comes at a time when our work to implement the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction is more urgent than ever. Here we can learn from each other, strengthen partnerships, identify innovative ideas, and adopt best practices. Our vision is clear: to reduce disaster risks and losses, and in doing so, protect lives, livelihoods, and the social and economic assets that underpin our societies. At the heart of our efforts, all our efforts, is climate change, an issue that we have integrated in our national and regional policies. From investment strategies to policy implementation, disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation and mitigation are now central to how we shape our future. I think it would not be an exaggeration to say that amongst the government workers, whenever there is a discussion or a planning session, there is no longer even a single conversation that we have that does not include an aspect of adaptation, mitigation to climate change. That is how primordial it has become in our everyday lives. However, the increasing frequency and severity of national hazards call for deeper innovation, for closer cooperation, and for sustained commitment from all of us. Through this conference, we are presented with the opportunity to explore new avenues of collaboration, especially in leveraging science and technology to alleviate the impact of climate change and ensuring that disaster risk reduction financing is accessible to all. By harmonizing all of our efforts, I trust we can build an Asia-Pacific region that is truly adaptive, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable. To the future that we are shaping through this conference, and I invite you, everyone, to join me for a toast. In pursuit of mitigating disaster risks, where nations rise above adversity, here is to best practices and the lasting and deeper friendship among our country and our people towards a sustainable future where no one is left behind. Cheers. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you, Mr. President. Excellencies, distinguished guests, welcome to Malacañan Palace. Please enjoy the dinner banquet we have prepared with the music of